Perfect. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Nikita, and with me I have Alex, Ivan, and Taryn. So today we're responding to challenge 1, and we're proposing what we call a data dash. So how did we formulate data dash? Well, just like any good doctor, we need to start with the patient's symptoms. All right, so why has Queensland Health showed up in our consultation room today? Well, Queensland Health have identified that there is a variation in understanding motivation and levels of engagement between relevant stakeholders. More specifically, we can see that our stakeholders are dealing with complexity and duplicity of information and systems, with a high cognitive overload and risk aversion in regard to the accountability related to decision-making processes. Based on these symptoms presented, we've formulated a diagnosis for Queensland Health. The symptoms suggest that there are a large number of moving parts. The complexity of the system and the diverse agendas of those interested in Queensland Health data present a challenge for the creation of a uniform system for the approval, access, and utilisation of rich data sets. Currently, it's an inefficient user experience for all. Therefore, how might we improve the user experience through a single source of truth and nudge data custodians and data requesters to collaborate for data sharing?
Thank you, Nikita. So that really takes us to the crux of our solution and our extended treatment plan. So we're trying to identify how might we collaborate by design, so really facilitating that duality of purpose between the data requesters and the data approvers. So our solution is the DART data dashboard, and that's essentially a holistic solution guided for both parties. And we propose that will be an additional webpage on the existing Queensland Health digital infrastructure that facilitates interaction and a partnership, an extended life cycle of partnership and interactivity between custodians and requesters. So we've definitely taken a bit of a smorgasbord approach, a charcuterie of different theories to guide this, specifically from social marketing. Anybody familiar with the field of social marketing and value co-creation? We've really focused on creating dialogue, access, risk reduction, and transparency through our specific nudges, as well as making it by default following the principles of EAST and good user experience principles. So here is our tentatively proposed empirical model, really focusing on how data requesters and data approvers might be engaged in a virtuous cycle of data sharing and collaboration. So the way our platform really works is that data requesters begin by identifying their needs, so really identifying their job to be done, if that's emotional, functional, or social. So think of that almost like a dating platform. You go in and you set your preferences, set what your end outcome is, and you really state your intentions. From here, that's where the data requesters are engaged in dialogue with the data approvers. And based on that initial needs assessment tool, the data approvers are given a customised toolkit in reflection of the needs of the data requesters. So that's really acknowledging that all of the legislation, all of the decision-making tools are available, but what we're doing is facilitating that in a pack that reflects a specific case of the requesting data personnel. And really what we see as an essential component of our solution is the transparency component. So we want to enable those approving the data to be able to see how the data has progressed throughout its life cycle and really engage in a dialogue and an extended interactions with the data requester as they see fit through the project's life cycle. So really enabling collaboration from discovery through to bedside as we see it. So let's take you through that in a little bit more detail, really focusing on the dialogue and the transparency components.
Let us bring you a little bit more to Data Dash, our proposed platform. So, as Alex has already explained, essentially what we're trying to do here is to increase transparency among the different parties, and also through dialogue, we want to establish partnerships and humanize the data sharing process. And we know, if we design digital platforms correctly, we are able to increase transparency too. This maximizes a better understanding of the role that each party plays in the process, and also allows for a visualization of the process itself. Think, for example, when you ask for an Uber, you are able to see when the car is coming to pick you up, but you are also able to see where the car is. You're also it's not just about your journey, but also the journey of the other party you are engaging with. So how do we translate that concept into our data sharing situation? So the first thing we want to do is to engage the parties early on. The way we want to do it is through a sort of quiz at the beginning. We will later go a little bit more into detail about that. But basically a needs assessment process where, as Alex already said, the needs are clearly stated. And this then is translated into a toolkit for the custodian where they can quickly respond and see, is the data available? We know, for example, an issue is that people go first through lengthy ethics application processes at the end just to discover that the data is not available. This shouldn't be the case. We need to bring this dialogue early on. And this information would also facilitate the custodian to triage the decision later on. Let's see, are they from Queensland Health, so they would have a higher trust level, or are they belong to another stakeholder group? And then they would just provide the other party just the relevant information early on the process. But we want to go beyond just a case-by-case process, because this is so far the way we have looked at it. We want to go beyond that. And for example, think about an organization that has already collaborated with Queensland Health repeatedly. This could be universities, could be clinicians. If you have already gone through the same process over and over again, but different custodians could nonetheless be involved in the process. Someone would come new to the process, but it would be good for them to already see that other custodians have already approved releasing similar data sets. It could just serve as a heuristic for them to really accelerate this process. Or think about an organization that, for example, like a university that needs data from 3 or 4 different custodians, because we also know as projects become increasingly more complex, we will need more and more data. And maybe one of these custodians is unsure of how the process should work. Well, if they're able to see that other custodians are also involved in the process, then they can potentially contact them and clear any doubts they have, any uncertainties. And well, lastly, as also already mentioned, we want to increase the transparency of what happens with the data after it has been released. And in this case, what we want to highlight is how the participants are, how the custodians are also part of the process.
Awesome. So it sounds like the customer journey was explained quite well, but just quick fire round, just to showcase that initial needs assessment tool as somebody, as a requesting party, really outlines what they're looking for, really outlining their communication preferences, and we're happy to discuss that a little bit further in question and answer time.
I get the fun job. So looking at the implementation of considerations, we will be viewing it through the innovation lenses of feasibility, viability and desirability. So our solution is feasible for Queensland Health. I'm pretty proud to say that statement. It does not rely on additional infrastructure. Rather, we leverage Queensland Health's existing open data portal and add a supplementary tab. We recognise the ethical limitations of an automated approval process, so therefore there'll be no change to existing structures and regulations. Rather, we are reducing information asymmetries, taking into consideration the jobs to be done by both parties and creating a platform for dialogue and transparency. Now, the toolkit that is automatically generated for data custodians to inform their decision-making process is feasible to create, giving existing flowcharts and choice architecture tools that govern the approval process already. Now, we know that this platform will be desirable for the user. Data custodians and requesters both have time-consuming workloads, and by responding to the needs of all stakeholders at the micro, meso and macro level, we ensure that our user avoids pathways with roadblocks or thwomps. But is our solution viable for Queensland Health? Short answer, yes. Data Dash takes into account ethical and potential legal implications and translate it into a usable form for Queensland Health end users. Our treatment plan will help recover our various patient groups by establishing a cycle of value creation with emphasis on dialogue and transparency.